Alright, Deranged Airsoft here, and we just got done sorboing the piston head in this. This is for the Magpul PTS PDR-C. We corrected the angle of engagement, we lubed all the internals, and we just got it all back together. And a couple tricks, like if you're going to put this back together yourself, make sure that you the way that this spring is holding this motor in place, you have to get that spring lined up inside of this shelf first. So you're going to kind of like slide it like that and then onto these gears, just so you know. Alright, everything's lubed, and we're going to kind of show you how to get everything back together and then back into the gun. So we're just doing like this could be like an instructional for takedown as well as reassembly. Alright, so this is the mag release lever. It goes into the gun like this. It attaches to this side, and it has a really unique spot here for this arm. If you can see that little attachment spot there. Also this really special and unique spring here also. So what you do is get this arm in here first. You don't even actually have to have the arm in there first. You could leave that out. First thing you're going to want to do is attach this spring, and it uses these really small screws. These are Phillips head screws. Let me grab my Phillips head screwdriver here. This one's too big. This one. And so what I'm going to do first is get this one in here first for the spring, like so. I'm not going to really tighten it down. I'm just going to get it snug. Next thing you're going to want to do is take this arm, slip the head of it into the spot here, and then just gently slip this onto those two posts. And this arm stays stuck in there. Alright, and then it takes two small Phillips head screws again. And these you're going to want to snug down, but don't snug it down so tight that it doesn't allow this arm to move freely. And you can kind of test here. So like, see, that's kind of stiff. So I'm just going to want to back it off ever so slightly. There. Same with this one. And this is one thing that PTS did when when they manufactured it, is they definitely put a lot of grease on these arms and mechanisms. And then when you have it on there, you push it and it activates your mag release. Okay, so there's that side. You flip it over, we need to do this whole selector plate. So here's the selector plate, really unique design, and there should be a spring for it. And now I'm going to remember where the spring went. Spring is right here. And this is where it comes a little bit of hassle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this screw on here first. Get that down there. That piece in there. Like that. Hold it down, don't let it move. So then when you pull the trigger, you can see how it activates the different modes. That's single shot. This right here is your cutoff lever. So when you do a single shot and you pull it half, that's a click. Notice how the cutoff lever hasn't really moved. If I was to pull the trigger farther back, now it moves, and that's full auto. And then it resets. Full auto. Single, full auto. Alright. That's kind of how you can, it gives you an idea what's going on behind the mechanism when you're actually shooting. And then just like the other side had those really small flatheads, Phillips head screws, that's the same thing on this side. And again, you're going to want to, there's posts sticking up, so you can snug them down, but just don't really over tighten them to where it's now pinching the plate and the gearbox together. That way, or else it's not going to slide. And this is, unlike others where this is plastic, that's a metal selector plate there, and so is this, which is kind of nice because then you don't have to worry about, well, you're still going to get some wear on them, but not as fast as plastic. Okay. This is tightened down. Not too tight. Same thing. Let me retighten this one in here. There we go. So there. This is our trigger. And pulls forward. Yep. Single, full auto. Okay. Everything's working fine. Alright, and then this is that reverse latch delete or release here. So there, you can just hear it spin back. When I pushed it, it released the tension that was in there from us test firing. Okay, and now it is ready to go back into the lower receiver, which is this. Let me see, is that screw still there? Yep. Okay, now let me show you this first before we get it back in here. Let me see if I can get the light to turn just a little bit. Can you see that? Alright, so these two screws back here are holding in the back end of this gearbox right here. And then inside the magwell, just like the Masada, there are two holes here with two screws inside. And they are Phillips head screws. So you don't need an Allen key to get these out like you do with the Masada. Alright, so to get the gearbox out, all you need to do is undo these two screws, and then this plate that covers this outer barrel. And I'll show you how to get all that back together here. Alright, but to put this back on, what you do is you take your gearbox and just kind of drop it in. And then here's the fun part. And make sure that these wires and things, the wiring has to go in second. So careful with these arms. They have to fit in there just nice and neat. And they fit in here like that. Make sure this, there we go, clicks in. And this wiring squeezes in underneath this lip here. Just like that. It goes down into your grip. Okay, so right now the gearbox is back in. It's not secured in there, but it is back in. And then here's those mechanisms I was showing you. Here's your trigger one, or your one that actually activates your mag release, and then your trigger one right here. So you see, as I pull the trigger, it pulls this forward, and then activates that switch back there. Okay. All right. So what we can do is we can put in those screws to hold it in place. So one is already in back here. The other one is right here. And believe me, these were a pain to get out the first time because they were really tight in here. Like really tightened down to the gearbox, and there's only this small little window in the top where you can actually get a screwdriver down into it. So my advice to you is when you go in, try to loosen these up just a little bit. Don't really snug them down either. Then you're going to use these two screws here inside the magwell, and they also are Phillips head screws. And they also were really tight. Actually, every screw on this gun was really tight. So, just keep that in mind. Okay. So So there, your gearbox is in. These components are now in, and you can start putting in other pieces. So here's your barrel.
It's a plate that goes
Oh
there.
yeah, plate. Forgot about that. Thank you. And a ball. There's a little ball that rests in this channel right there. And this plate goes over top of it, and it is spring loaded, so be careful when you take this apart. Make sure you put that on top. There we go. Then these two long hex key bolts go in, or screws go in there. And they are number 2s, I believe. Yep. Or 2.5s actually. Yep. 2.5s. And in they go. Okay. And just snug them down, don't have to be super tight. But. So then we check our trigger. Trigger's working. There's semi, full auto. Okay. Mag release is working. You can see it moving right there. Okay. So then we put in our barrel, and this end is going to fit right into the nozzle area. And there's a groove cut into the barrel to match this groove here. And if you have the big flash hider on, you're going to want to take it off. The big metal one, that needs to come off before you do any of this, because you won't have enough wiggle room to get it out. Alright, once you get your barrel lined up and in there and snug, it's really simple. This plate goes over top. There's only one way it can go on because it has that cut in it. And then these 4 screws go back in. And remember what I was saying, if you watched one of our other video, I mentioned there were a lot of screws with this gun. Here's where they all are. Okay, there's one. And I'm not snugging them down all the way, I'm just putting them in. And this plate is kind of like a bent, you could say, so it actually puts tension on this barrel when it's in place. And locks it down, so there's no wiggle in the barrel at all, which is pretty nice. And just kind of snug them down into your star pattern, and just don't, really crank them down, but just enough to where it's holding it in place. Okay. And there, the barrel is on and in, and that is what it looks like right now. Then you could just put your flash hider on, and these are counterclockwise threading on this gun. So there. Okay. Then you can put your upper receiver on here. There are 3 push pins, and when we opened it, or when a lot of people got their original PDRs, they had just regular push pins like the Masada, and these 2 tabs would break off. PTS has, with this model at least, has kind of corrected some of those issues based on those types of pins that came with this gun. And I'll show you those in just a second after I move these in. Okay. So there. Make sure you don't pinch your wiring in there. Alright, so there are 3 pins that come with this. These 3. 2 long ones go here and here, and a short one goes up front. And they go on the opposite side. So let's flip it over. So here's a long one for back here. Long one for the middle. And a short one up front. And here is the part where I said that they corrected it. They sit flush on this side, and then on the others, they also have now a small hex key screw. It's a 2mm that goes on this side and will lock it in place, so you won't actually punch out now those those tabs, like when the first batch came off the product line, some of those users, that's what happened to theirs. Do you need another hex key on the other side to really snug them down?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have another 2? Alright. But you can fit another, no, that's not a 2 on this side. Yep. So you put a 2mm on one side, and you put a 2mm hex key on the other side. Our other one is missing, and it will snug these down nice and tight for you. But that is how you get your Magpul PTS PDR-C back together. And